with the breaking updates coming in, because this seems to be a big step and a positive one, a thaw in the US-Iran relationship amid the ceasefire period. Providing the much-needed relief to the nations worldwide, Iran has now finally opened the conflict-torn maritime choke point, which is the Strait of Hormuz, for all commercial weapons, thus as a day after the ceasefire that was announced with Lebanon. Now, what is being said on part of President Trump, that he has announced that he is happy with the decision, but however, when it comes to the naval blockade of the United States, that will, however, remain in effect. President Trump has now declared his support for the move, but has added a caveat that the U.S. naval blockade of the Iranian ports will remain in place pending the completion of the final political deal with Iran. President Trump has also said that this week, possibly, the next round of U.S.-Iran talks could begin, but if these talks drag on or fail, then the U.S. military might be tasked with continuing with the naval blockade. However, there is still a lot of certainty as far as certain pressing questions are now concerned about the blockade. President Trump, however, is now denying that the U.S. Navy blockade, however, still will remain in place till the time a deal with Iran is reached.
This will be a great and brilliant day for the world, because Iran has just announced that the Strait of Hormuz is fully open and ready for business and full passage. But the naval blockade, with the greatest navy in the world, from the greatest military the world has ever seen, we built it during my first term. We built it. They said I was crazy. We weren't so crazy, were we? Will remain in full force and effect as it pertains to Iran until such time as our transaction with Iran is 100% complete and fully signed. And this process, we're getting along well, but who knows with anyone, but who knows with Iran in particular.
Now, in the meantime, let's get to the Iranian point of view. What Iran has now been saying to this statement, because Iran seems to be slamming the ongoing U.S. naval blockade of the Iranian ports and has now been citing this to be a violation of the ceasefire agreement. And they say if they continue what they call this the naval blockade, then surely when it comes to Iran, that will take the necessary reciprocal measures. And this is now coming in from the foreign ministry. As far as when it comes to Iran is concerned, they believe that they are the Strait of Hormuz guardians, and wherever necessary, it will not compromise when it comes to implementing measures that guarantee the rights of the Iranian people. Well, that seems to be a warning that has now come in from Iran's side, because the U.S. naval blockade, however, still remains in place till the time that President Trump says that all of the terms and the conditions that have been set by the United States are not agreed upon by Iran. Let's connect with Mayank on this. He's joining us live this morning. Mayank, good morning. A very positive step and a statement that is now coming in from President Trump's side, and that too after a very long time. And this is the much needed relief with the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz.
Strait of Hormuz was the one which was affecting the entire globe willy-nilly, and we had been using the term or a sentence saying that while bombs were falling in Middle East, the waves were reaching across the globe. So this is what the kind of effect was, and now it has changed. Because it has changed, because now as President Donald Trump has announced that business as usual will be, at least from the side of Strait of Hormuz is concerned, it will be now that business as usual. But then an important significant point is that the blockade continues. That's a very important point. And coming from Iran's side, they have said that it is going to be business as usual. Whatever was before 28th of Feb, it will be like that. So which means every vessel except for the military vessels that can move from that side. One interesting fact which needs to be brought out is the headquarters of the 5th Fleet or other major bases is that side only. So how things are panning that side, because if there is no movement for military grade military vessels, then what is happening that side, that will come out gradually. In the middle of the war, during March month, there was one news which said that Iran had hit a tactical vessel of the military tactical vessel. So that was the only news which came out. So interestingly, now as the blockade has been removed, the regulations which were continued by Iran side, they have said that it's all open for everyone, whereas the US side, which is continuing with the blockade, this has to be brought out that if this blockade, because announcement from the US side was that blockade was only for the vessels which were moving towards the.
But how is it possible that unconditionally that Iran seems to be agreeing to all of the terms and conditions that has been set by the United States even before the second round of talks may happen, and that is the very reason why the first round of talks failed? And Vice President Vance had said before departing Islamabad that we've placed the best possible offer for them. Now they have to either agree or to face consequences. We'll see exactly what has happened in the middle. But in the meantime, the immediate impact that has now been seen in world markets, and of course when it comes to the Brent crude prices. Now, for the first time in weeks now, we are looking at, as far as the Brent crude oil prices are concerned, they have fallen sharply and are well below the level of $100 per barrel mark. Around $91.87 per barrel. That seems to be the price in, especially when it comes to this cooling off that is now being seen as the markets now have been getting also the much needed relief here. Well, now what we are now looking at as far as the situation is concerned, come Monday, if the ceasefire still continues, because it is now been said till the 21st is when the ceasefire will continue. And Mayank, this seems to be the very much needed relief. Of course, with the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and the relief that comes across when it comes to the markets, Brent crude has also seen a sharp fall.
Indeed, it's a major relief which has come from the news that it is open now, at least for business as usual from the Iran side. And even US has said, except for the vessels which are moving in or out of Iranian ports, it's the blockade is open. So it affects the whole globe, as we had been saying. And if fuel supplies are as usual, as normal as they were before 28th of Feb, then that means it will be available for everyone actually in that case. And India majorly depended on the supplies, which is 1/5 of its 20% of its supplies they had been coming from that side. What matters more is actually all the manufacturing hubs, which includes China and India both. They were having major supplies of their fuel or energy coming from that side only. Then you bring in Japan and South Korea also. So Asia was getting affected majorly, and not only Asia. The whole world was getting affected indirectly also, because then comes the other things like fertilizers, chemicals, like helium and all, helium gases and all. So these have a major wider effect on other things also.
Well, let me get an economist point of view here on the broadcast. Mayank continues to be with us. Sharad Kohli is also connected. Sharad, good morning. What is your point of view? Because the Brent crude, which is the international benchmark, has fallen more than 10%, but it is still higher than the $72 per barrel mark that was before the start of the war, before the 28th of February. Are you looking at kind of much needed relief across markets as well?
Good morning to you and the viewers. Indeed, I think the markets, because the futures trade almost 24 hours, 7 days a week. So we're already seeing a rise in futures. If you look at Dow futures and Gift Nifty in India, which is an alternate to the stock markets in India, yes, the markets are going to recover. But we must keep in mind that the truce is quite fragile as of now, because there are some sticking points on uranium being handed over to the US and so on and so forth. Plus, another important aspect why crude hasn't fallen down as much as it should have after the opening of Strait of Hormuz is because the US barricading is still there. The Iranian barricading has been removed, but US still continues. So I think the fragility of the whole truce is very much evident, and the markets are also witnessing that, which is why, although it's a big relief, down from $99 to, at this point of time, it's between $86 and $90. It's about more than 10% fall, which will definitely boost the sentiment in the markets. But I think things are going to remain very volatile unless something very concrete and solid comes out, because pre-war, the crude was about $65 to $70. So I think it will take a very long time, as per my assessment, for crude to go back to that level, or maybe it may not go back to that level because some of the infrastructure has been damaged for very long term. So we need to wait and see. I think it's very fragile, very volatile. The markets may react, but then it won't take long for markets to quickly go back into the same spiral again.
So you're saying a very cautious approach that the markets now seems to be seeing. However, this is the much needed relief for the first time in weeks that now we are looking at. The Brent crude prices have fallen sharply and are well before the $100 barrel per mark. Thank you very much, Sharad Kohli, for your point of view. As Mayank continues to be with us, we talk about, almost almost that is over 45 days of this Operation Epic Fury. President Trump, however, now seems to be claiming another major breakthrough and saying that the U.S. military mission against Iran, what he announced to be the suspension of Tehran's nuclear program and the reopening of the strategic Strait of Hormuz for the full passage. Now, President Trump says that he would secure what he called as the nuclear dust, or which he's been describing to be as enriched uranium from Iran without any financial exchange. So while asserting that one of his key objectives is restoring the free movement of the Strait of Hormuz choke point, however, that has been achieved. Military objectives, as per President Trump, has been achieved. However, when it comes to enriched uranium, according to President Trump, this is a statement coming in from his side only, that has agreed on part of Tehran to hand over enriched uranium.
This process should go very quickly, and that most of the points are already negotiated and agreed to. You'll be very happy. The USA will get all nuclear dust. You know what the nuclear dust is? That was that white powdery substance created by our B-2 bombers, those great B-2 bombers, late one evening, 7 months ago. No money will exchange hands in any way, shape, or form. Iran will be, and you know how we're going to get the dust, right? Iran, we were going to take it anyway, but taking it that way is slightly more dangerous, but we were going to get it anyway. But Iran, with the help of the USA, has removed or is removing all of the sea mines, and most importantly, it never agreed, and you'll understand, they will never have a nuclear weapon. They will never have a nuclear weapon.
Well, let's in the meantime get you the Iranian point of view. You just heard President Trump saying that Iran has agreed to hand over nuclear dust or enriched uranium. However, Iran has completely dismissed the statement. They've called it to be lie and a baseless statement by President Trump, saying that they never agreed to this. Iran, however, has now rejected uranium claim by President Trump, denying any agreement, saying that they will never transfer enriched uranium. And Iranian leadership, however, seems to be dismissing the U.S. assertion, where they have been calling as President Trump's claims to be untrue and baseless. Now, Mayank, over this very claim that, you know, if there is no financial assistance that Iran is now seeking in exchange, then it was the entire objective all about, especially when it comes to monetizing the Strait of Hormuz. So there still needs to be a lot more details that actually need to come out on what exactly are the terms and conditions that Iran is agreeing in, on what basis, what is it getting in exchange?
Definitely, and a serious matter to discuss, because in the sense the whole talk was put in abeyance or was thwarted because of this nuclear issue only, because the posture which was made by Iran or projected by Iran was such that it is something on which it is non-negotiable for them. And now you hear the kind of statements which are coming out. In between, we need to bring out the visit of Field Marshal Munir to Iran, and he was sort of acting as an imagery of the US. And it is post that I think lots of things have changed. And this statement, that means there is a kind of a discussion which is going on the nuclear issue, and they are trying to now pull down the things to a middle ground. Now, enrichment percentage is something which decides whether it will be weapon grade or it will be used for peaceful purposes, because NPT of 1968, promulgated in 1968, Non-Proliferation Treaty, it also says that peaceful purposes, use of nuclear material can be done for that. So in that case, what will be the kind of negotiation which will be taking place, and how will the enriched material be shifted?
But that would mean that the IAEA, you know, when it comes to the nuclear watchdog, that has to keep that kind of data, and the team be allowed when it comes to the sites, the nuclear sites there, which US previously had talked about obliterating in last year's attacks that happened in June. So has there been any difference to this year's attacks as well? Because now what is being said that come Monday, it's a possibility that the second round of talks may happen in Islamabad, and this is something that President Trump has been hinting at a positive outcome, saying a lot of good things are happening, and he says that the US naval blockade will come to an end post a deal which is reached with Iran.
Yeah, we're having a big day. We'll see how it all turns out, but it should be good. We've had some very good discussions, and hopefully that subject that you like to talk about will be very good. And we've done a good job, but we'll see talks are going on. It'll go on over the weekend, and a lot of good things are happening. And that includes Lebanon, too.
There's still reporting today that there's still, Iran says there's significant differences.
Well, there could be. Let's see what happens. If there are, we'll have to straighten it out. But I don't think there's too many significant differences.
On the blockade, Mr. President, what will it take to end the blockade?
When the agreement is signed, the blockade ends. As soon as the agreement gets signed, that's when the blockade ends. So we're having a big day.
All right, this is significant as far as talks are concerned. First round that failed in Islamabad. What happens when the second round happens? Will President Trump himself go to Islamabad? Well, he's been dropping hints as well. Thank you very much for the moment, Mayank. Those are the international updates that we are lined up for you this morning. Back with more on the other side.